Hello learners, in the previous lecture of the module, we have completed meaning and definition of feature article. We have also studied structure of feature article. Furthermore, we have completed various types of feature articles like news feature, special feature, personality feature, interview feature, background feature, investigative feature and so on. In addition, we have also completed characteristics of feature. We have also learned writing process of feature articles in detail. In this online lecture of the module, we will explain follow-ups feature. We will also discuss importance of follow-up feature in journalism. Furthermore, we will discuss tips for writing follow-ups. In addition, we will also explain anniversary follow-up and preliminary follow-up in detail. After completion of this video lecture, you will be able to understand follow-up feature. You will be also able to understand importance of follow-up feature in journalism. Furthermore, you will also be able to understand basics for writing follow-ups. In addition, you will also be able to explain anniversary follow-ups and preliminary follow-ups in detail. So, learner, let us start with explaining follow-ups. A follow-up feature, also known as a follow-up story or a news update, is a type of news article that provides additional information or developments on a previously published news story. When a significant event or story captures public attention, a journalist often continue to track its progress and report on any new developments, changes or consequences that have occurred since the initial reporting of that news story. A follow-up story written by the dedicated follow-up team aims to provide further information on a previously published or broadcast news story. These additional details may include fresh facts, recent developments, reactions or even bring to light previously overlooked matter, such as negligence due to lack of space, time or missing deadline for submitting news story. The purpose of a follow-up feature is to keep the audience informed and updated on the latest development of published news story. It provides a more comprehensive understanding of the situation by adding context, new facts and perspectives that may have emerged since the original news story published. Follow-up features also help to maintain interest of readers in ongoing or evolving news stories. In the pursuit of follow-up reporting, journalists actively engage with pertinent sources, experts and authorities to collect the latest information. Additionally, they conduct interviews with affected individuals or stakeholders, ensuring a comprehensive perspective on the ongoing progression of the story. The structure of follow-up feature may include references to the original article for context, a summary of key points from the initial story and then the elaboration on what has happened since then. It is crucial for journalists to maintain accuracy and verify information, especially when reporting updates to avoid perpetuating any inaccuracies that might have been present in the initial reporting. Follow-up features are an integral part of responsible journalism, as they contribute to the public's understanding of ongoing stories and events and demonstrate the commitment to keeping the audience informed about significant issues as they developed over the time. Need for follow-ups feature in journalism. Follow-up are needed because one story on its own may not cover all aspects of an event or controversy properly. Although life goes on second by second, day by day, journalists cannot report it all. Journalists have to concentrate on bits of life and report them to their readers or listeners in 3-column stories or 40 seconds news report, 3-minute current affairs segment or half-page feature article. Journalists impose space and time limit on their reports, which do not always reflect how important the event is in the real world. Journalists also attempt to show continuing events in self-contained chunks called news stories. Nowadays, in the information-rich world, this approach becomes essential for effectively sharing the vast amount of available information within limited time constraint. However, just because you as a journalist have described an event in a single column story or a 30-second report does not mean that the event itself has been described completely. There are often side issues which have not been touched or later events which will need reporting themselves. We have to distinguish follow-ups from what we call breaking stories, which are reports of events, controversies or debates which are still happening as we report them. The Horley reports on a hijacking are part of a breaking story. The reports of the eventual trial of the hijackers is a follow-up. We normally catch line the latest version of a breaking stories or update which is titled hijack update, because it still relies on the same news angle, that is what is happening at the hijack. It informs us a more up to date report. We would normally catch line a follow up according to the angle of the follow up story itself. For example, we might write a follow up story about the transport minister announcing new security measures to prevent further hijackings. We might catch line it security promises. Because events are often connected to hijacking, it is not always easy to know the difference between a follow-up and a news story or an update of breaking story. However, a special feature of a follow-up is that it relies for its significance or interest on at least one previous story. Remember, though, that just because your follow-up describes the effect of a previous story, you cannot expect all of your readers or listeners to remember the original story, even if they did see or hear it. Later in this video lecture, we will discuss how you should use background information to remind your audience of the original story. The term follow-up will have no meaning to your readers or listeners. It is simply a label we use as journalists. We use follow-up for a variety of reasons. Number 1, continuity follow-ups. Continuity follow-ups, also known as ongoing coverage or series reporting refer to a specific type of news reporting in which journalists provide regular updates on a particular topic or event over an extended period, unlike traditional follow-up articles that focus on updates after a single major event. Continuity follow-ups offer sustained and in-depth coverage to keep the audience informed about ongoing developments and changes over time. This type of reporting is particularly valuable for complex and long-term stories that requires continuous monitoring and analysis. Continuity follow-ups are written for variety of reasons, such as comprehensive understanding, tracking progress, in-depth analysis, engaged readers, accountability of officers, and so on. Follow-ups show how different parts of life are connected. Whatever we finish writing a story, at that point we limit our report of the event or debate to a single moment in time. Follow-up help us to set stories in context over a longer period of time and to explain cause and effect phenomena. Most events are like dropping a stone into a pool of water. The stone forces a ripple to spread out, disturbing the water in all directions. Just because we stop reporting an event like stop stone dropping in a pool, it does not mean that the ripples themselves stop spreading. We must watch the report the further progress too, because they are also part of that published news stories. Thus, continuity follow-ups are an essential aspect of responsible journalism, ensuring ongoing accuracy and relevance in reporting. By providing regular updates and analysis, journalists can foster a more informed and engaged society, driving positive change and accountability on a wide range of issues. Number 2, to satisfy curiosity of readers. When a journalist arouses curiosity of readers or listeners by publishing a news story, he or she has a duty to satisfy that curiosity with issues or events which are self-contained. A well-written news report or feature article will tell your audience everything they want to know. However, very few events and issues can be packaged so conveniently. Many news reports raise questions particularly, but what happens now? Having given your audience an appetite for the story, you have a duty to provide answers to those kinds of questions. Every time you think that you have finished with a story, put yourself in the place of your readers or listeners and ask, is there anything else I want to know about it? If there is, perhaps you should research and write a follow-ups. Number 3, to add balance. Sometimes news stories are not completely reported because of a shortage of our time or unavailable of news source and insufficient information due to demand of market or competitive media market. Journalists are often forced to run stories which are not properly balanced, while the follow-ups give journalists a second chance to provide that balance. For example, if the finance minister announces a controversial new tax, you need to report what the opposition and people affected by it think. If you cannot get them in time for the first story, you must write a follow-up which concentrates on the reactions rather than the measures itself. Such reactions stories are vital in maintaining your reputation for fairness. Major events or controversies also produce large amount of information. Your readers or listeners need time to absorb all that information. Giving it all in a single story may only confuse them, so you can split it up into a series of follow-up stories run over a number of days or weeks. Number 4. To cover missed stories. No matter how good a journalist you are, if you will occasionally miss to write or publish news stories, perhaps the first you know of this is when you hear the story on another station or read it in another newspaper. By that time, it is usually too late to report the same story yourself. It is usually best to accept that you have been beaten for this story and try to produce a follow-up. The follow-up in this case still needs to have the information from the original story which you did not carry, but it should have a fresh news angle. For example, the competition may beat you to cover a story about government decision to deport someone. Rather than repeat this in your next edition or bulletin, try to interview the person or a relative to get their reactions for a follow-up. The story will be up to date and anyone comparing your story with the competitions will not think that you are copying from them. Tips for reporting follow-ups. Although follow-ups rely on previous stories for their news values, you should still treat them as separate stories when writing them. They should be written in the inverted pyramid style, with the most important aspects to be reported first, that is the news angle in the intro. Although the news angle will usually refer to a previous story, your story will not be news if it is only report something your readers or listeners already know. The strength of the follow-up is that it tells your audience about a new aspects of an old story, intended in a refreshing and lively way. For example, the original story may have been that the finance minister imposed a consumption tax of 10%. In the follow-up, the opposition attacked the tax. So you would write follow-ups including following segments. Number 1. Background. All follow-ups must contain at least one paragraph of background to put the whole story in the context. The background information can be incorporated at any point within the story. For better comprehension of the latest development, it is advisable to place the most crucial background information nearer to the beginning of the story. If the follow-up is full of new and very important material, you may have to put the background information near the end of the story, even in the last paragraph. If you do this, it is sometimes useful to insert a few words of background higher up the story, against just to place the story in context. For example, in your consumption tax story, the third paragraph on hero's announcement is enough to set the story in context. The real background details what will be taxed and how can come at the end of your story. With major events or arguments, you may have to do several follow-ups over a period. You could use the same background articles, but it is more usual to shorten the background as you get further away from the event. Besides, each follow-up may provide material which needs including a background information in subsequent stories. Number 2. Identify sources. Some follow-ups such as a reaction automatically suggest a different source to the used in the original story. With other kinds of follow-ups, it may be more natural to go back to the original source for more information. Such stories could be news of a plan with the follow-up a story about the plan in action. In this case, you might go back to the same source for new information. However, it is better to find new source for follow-ups. They not only add variety, but they also add a different view, even though your new source may only be another spokesperson from the same department. Number 3. Maintain a diary. A journalist without a diary is totally at the mercy of event. The diary allows you to plan ahead and keep track of current event and controversies. If you see the chance for writing a follow-up, sometimes in the future make a note in the diary to remind you. You must look at the diary every day for reminder of the events or anniversaries. It is important to enter details of possible follow-ups whenever they suggest themselves. The police may announce that they are charging a man with murder. If you run the story, you should also make a note in the diary of where and when he will appear in court. An association may launch a charity appeal. You should make a note to check how much they raised money. If you are working with other journalists, it is a good idea to keep one central news desk diary so that everyone is kept informed about what stories might be coming up. In such a case, your entry needs to be slightly longer than a single word, but not too long that it wastes space. A reference to the original story is usually enough. Anniversary follow-ups. Anniversary follow-up features are unique type of news coverage that revisit significant events, stories, or a milestone on their yearly anniversaries. These articles allow journalists to reflect on the impact and implication of past events, assess how situations have evolved over time, and provide updates on the progress made since the original reporting. Anniversary follow-ups hold historical and sentimental values as they offer a sense of continuity and allow readers to remember important moments. For example, anniversary follow-up features on the Bhopal gas tragedy provide an opportunity to revisit the events, assess the long-term consequences, and reflect on the ongoing impact on the survivors and affect communities. Anniversary features are a useful time to update stories. If a politician promised action a year ago, now is the time to ask them what they have achieved. If police were haunting a murderer 6 months ago, ask whether they have any new clues. Some people regard this as manufacturing news. This would be true if all you are doing is rewriting old stories. However, events often have long-term effects. Promises should be kept or explanation provided as to why they were not. Journalists have a duty to monitor the consequences of events or controversies which we regarded as newsworthy in the past. Very often the journalist will be the only person who tries to make people accountable and reminds them of their responsibility to keep promises. Anniversary follow-up features are an important part of journalism, providing readers with an opportunity to remember, reflect and understand the lasting impact of past event on the present and the future. By commemorating significant moments, journalists contribute to a deeper understanding of history and its influence on our lives today. Preliminary or prelims stories. Preliminary stories or pre-event stories in journalism refer to news reports that are published or broadcast before a planned event or occurrence. Preliminary stories are also called prelims news stories. These stories aim to provide information, context and anticipation about the upcoming event, helping the audience understand its significance and potential impact. Preliminary stories serve as a preview or teaser to generate interest and awareness among the public before the event takes place. They are commonly used in various fields including sports, politics, entertainment and businesses. Purpose of preliminary stories or pre-event stories. Number 1. Generate public interest. Prelims news stories aim to generate public interest and attract attention to the upcoming events, whether it's a major sports match or political rally, a movie premiere or a product launch. Number 2. Inform and educate. These stories inform the audience about the event's purpose, history and potential impact, helping them better appreciate its significance. Number 3. Set the stage. Prelims set the stage for events, laying the foundation for comprehensive coverage when the actual event occurs. Number 4. Promote engagement. By providing insights and analysis, prelims news stories encourage the audience to engage in discussion and share their opinions about the event. Number 5. Increase viewership or attendance. In media and entertainment, pre-event stories can increase viewership or attendance for the actual event by creating excitement and curiosity among public. Number 6. Build narrative. For events with ongoing significance or multiple occurrences, prelims news stories contribute to building a narrative over time, connecting past and future events. Thus, prelims news stories play a crucial role in journalism, marketing and event management by creating anticipation, awareness and interest among the audience. They set the stage for the actual event coverage and contribute to the overall engagement and success of the event. So, learners, with this we have completed follow-up features. We have also completed importance of follow-up feature in the journalism. Furthermore, we have discussed tips for writing follow-up features. In addition, we have also explained anniversary follow-up and preliminary follow-ups in detail. Now, it's time to check your progress. Write down following questions and check your learning level by writing answers of those questions. To assess your learning level, we are providing you long questions. Give answers of the long questions. Number 1. What is follow-ups? Describe follow-ups with the example. Number 2. What is anniversary follow-up? Describe importance of anniversary follow-up in the context of Bhopal gas strategy. Number 3. What are prelims or preliminary stories? Describe importance of prelims for the success of an event. Number 4. What is follow-ups stories? Describe writing process of disaster follow-ups. Number 5. What is follow-ups? Describe writing process of anniversary follow-ups. Number 6. Discuss difference between anniversary follow-up and preliminary follow-up with the examples.